back, everybody. So it is UFC 251. I cannot tell you how stoked I am. I have not been this stoked for a card, and I cannot remember when. 3 title fights. Jorge Masvidal, Street Judas, the gangster, stepping in on 6 days' notice against Kamaru Usman. Come on, man. And let's give some props to Kamaru Usman for taking a fight on 6 days' notice with a change in opponent. These are just gangster freaking moves, man. So need to give a little props to where they belong, man. Apparently, the UFC and Jorge Masvidal were able to come to some sort of conclusion on what if fair pay was. I'm guessing that Jorge didn't get quite as much as he's leading us to believe, and I'm going to guess he got more than the UFC wanted to give. That's usually the sweet spot when it comes to these types of negotiations. But nevertheless, I was stoked. I was still stoked for this card, even when I found out that Gilbert Burns tested positive for Corona. But with Jorge stepping up like he did, man, oh man, it just takes it to a new level. So, let's talk about some of these fights. We're going to do some picks, predictions, talk a little bit about betting lines. And, of course, as I stated last week, we're only going to be doing picks for the main cards. And a big part of that reason is most people don't even know who some of the prelims are in any given fight. And this is probably not an exception. I looked through the prelims, and they're good fights, but there are some fighters in there that I have no background on. And you guys know I'm pretty good with being able to pull up at least some good information on some of these fighters, and it's just not there. So as always, we start with the main card. However, there is one fight that we need to talk about on the prelims, and that is Prochazka versus Ozdemir. So apparently everybody, Sean Shelby, Dana, everybody is all going crazy over this Prochazka guy. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I have seen him fight before, but even the UFC, if you got 3 different people calling the fight, you got 3 different pronunciations. So anyway, he's fighting Volkan Ozdemir, though. Volkan Ozdemir, he's no slouch, but apparently this is the guy that UFC is fully anticipating on climbing the ranks very, very quickly. So if you're going to put some money down on a prelim fight, I picked that fight for you based on everything that I just said. Generally speaking, and we saw this with Volkanovski, or I'm sorry, no, Petr Yan. We saw this with him when he first came in. I forget who it was he fight, but he just starched somebody. And the UFC had been saying all along, watch out for this guy. Well, that's what they're saying about this Prochazka guy. So you want to put a little money down on him, I think it would be a pretty safe bet. Okay, so first fight of the the main card. This one, and Vegas has it right, but it's just too easy to pick. And I mean, it doesn't get any easier to pick a fight. It's low-hanging fruit. And that is Paige Van Zandt versus Amanda Ribas. spelled with an R, but it's pronounced with an H. Amanda Ribas is a plus 800. I'm sorry, minus 800. So she is a big favorite, one of the biggest favorites you will ever see. And it stands to reason. Paige VanZant has 8 fights in the past 6 years. This is the last fight on her contract. She's going to Bellator. It's the worst kept secret in the world. Her husband fights for Bellator. And as a big middle finger to Paige VanZant, her final fight before she goes into negotiations with either UFC or Bellator, they give her Amanda Ribas. You talk about a middle finger, man. Yeah. Ribas is phenomenal striker. She's phenomenal on the ground. Paige VanZant is very average to above average in both of those departments, especially on the ground though. She will not be able to keep up with Amanda Ribas on the ground. Her only path to victory in this fight is a knockout, and I just don't think she's got the power for it. And not to mention, she's going to have to hit her clean, and Amanda Ribas is expert standing up. There's just no way. It's low-hanging fruit here, but we pick it. We have to. It's on the main card. Okay. Oh my goodness. Rose Namajunas versus Jessica Andrade. And I am admittedly a huge, enormous fan of Rose Namajunas. Her striking is phenomenal. I seriously, I think she could go fight. She could go box and win a belt. She's that good. And she lost her first fight to Jessica Andrade. I'm sorry, not her first fight, but the first time that her and Jessica Andrade fought. I watched the fight again, and I mean, Rose had the fight in the bag. Jessica Andrade had her in a very, very compromising position, and I have to admit too, Rose gave her this out. So it wasn't one of these things where she got caught. She made a mistake with getting her arm locked in, and Jessica Andrade banged her on her head, knocked her out cold. But that is not the real story of the fight. The real story of the fight is that Rose Namajunas was picking her apart, and Jessica Andrade is no joke. I don't know. Oh, okay. So Andrade is a plus 160 dog. Even Vegas has it, but I'll be honest with you, 160 seems like a low number. So I think there's money to be made here on Rose. Unless it goes up, and I would be surprised if it doesn't go up. But, these Vegas people, they've got it figured out. They know more than I do. But how many times have we seen an upset in the UFC? It happens every card. Every card, there's a big upset. Not that this would be an upset, but in a sense, it would be an upset because I don't think it goes the distance. I think that Rose gets the knockout. If she could choke her out, but it would come by way of Jessica shooting because she's getting hit so much. I just do not see a path to victory for Jessica. Jeez, I keep wanting to say Amanda. I love Amanda Nunes. But yeah, I just don't see a path to victory for Jessica on this. Rose is just too good. That's just the reality. So let's move along to. I mean, this card is just ridiculous. Jose Aldo versus Piotr Jan. Okay, so this is a fight. Originally, when I looked at it, I'm like, man, this seems like a no-brainer. I'm going Jose Aldo all day on this. But then I watched Volkanovski. I'm sorry, Piotr Jan. I watched his last two fights, and man, he's a dangerous man. He's a very dangerous man. Jose is very long in the tooth. I don't know. I don't know what to do here. This whole card, the rest of this card is just ridiculously difficult to pick. I don't know what to do in this. I still don't know what to do with this. I'm opened up a video to record this, and I don't know what to do. I will say this. I would be surprised if it goes the distance. I would be very surprised if it went the distance. Jose Aldo's a plus 190 underdog. Yeah, I think we got to go Piotr Jan. I'm trying to break the habit of saying Peter. Dana calls him Piotr Jan. It looks like Peter, but it's pronounced Piotr. Yeah, I'm going to go Piotr Jan on this. Okay, so we have Alexander Volkanovski versus Max Blessed Holloway. So Max Holloway came out earlier this week and claims that his only training was done through Zoom. I believe that as much as I believe that Conor McGregor is retired. It's not true. There's no way. He lost his belt. Arguably the greatest featherweight champion in history. Loses his belt at the age of 28. Still young. So you know he's still hungry. There's no way all he did was train on Zoom with his coaches. Not buying it. Nobody's buying it. DC came out yesterday and said, 2 days ago, and said that he knows for a fact that Max was not just training there because Max told him that, or no, he actually saw Max on the mat with somebody, a video of it. So obviously he's full of shit. I think he's just trying to lay some groundwork for Volkanovski to maybe lower his expectations of what Max is going to bring. They do a lot of head games in this sport, but I don't think that stuff normally doesn't work. I hope that he's not doing it to give himself an out. I seriously doubt that, though. Max Holloway is a badass. Yeah. These are so hard. The one thing that I will say is Max has Volkanovski, believe it or not, he has a reach advantage on Max, but Max is a lot taller. And one thing that I noticed about Max when he lost the belt to Volkanovski was two things, actually. One was the big thing, though, and that was he wasn't checking Volkanovski's kicks. He's going to have to check those kicks. He said that those kicks weren't doing any damage. I watched the fight again. They were absolutely doing damage. You could see his leg keep buckling. Every time he was getting kicked, his leg was buckling. There's no way that those kicks weren't affecting him. And Max is a very, very come forward in your face kind of guy, which is the second part of this, with that Max, if he can come forward, he wins this fight. Because that's how he's won all of his fights. If he can use his height as leverage, obviously he doesn't have the reach advantage, but he can still use it as leverage, chopping down. He can win this fight. Volkanovski is, I think he would be much better served shooting on Max a little more than he did in the first fight. Man, oh man. Excuse me 1 second, guys. Need a drink here. I don't know what to do. This is such a hard card, man. Oh my goodness. This is one of the hardest cards I've ever had to pick. Okay, I'm because I have to pick. I'm gonna take Holloway. I don't know. I can't believe I just said that out loud. This is so hard, man. I do believe this fight goes the distance. Who gets their hand raised? It's such a pick 'em fight. I'm going to stick with it. All right, I'm going to go with Max Holloway. And I'll explain why. The only reason, the tipping point for me, is that he is arguably the greatest featherweight champion of all time. It's between him and or Jose Aldo. But I learned a long time ago, even in any other sport, hockey, football, whatever sport I'm watching, is never ever doubt a champion, right? Well, then you would say, well, then why wouldn't you go with Volkanovski? Well, Volkanovski's only been champion for one fight. Max defended that, what, 5-6 times? Something ridiculous. And he's got to go back and take what belongs to him. And he is only 28. And that's another thing that kind of tips me in Max's favor, is that he is only 28 years old, right? I mean, he's not 38. He's not 35. I mean, he's got to still have some of that drive in him. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna go Max Holloway decision. And it's going to be a one-round decision. That one round is going to make the difference in this fight. I truly believe that. I just don't see this fight ending before the 5th round. Before the end of the 5th round. Spectacular. Okay, so let's get to it, man. Oh, man, I am so stoked. I'm fucking stoked. Oh, I got to make sure I mute that out. I am so freaking stoked, man. Okay, so this is an easy fight to pick, right? Conventional wisdom says Kamaru Usman all day long. There's no way Jorge Masvidal beats Kamaru Usman. All Kamaru Usman has to do is take Jorge down. And that's all she wrote, right? Jorge hasn't been training. You know he hasn't. That's not an excuse for Jorge. He hasn't been training the way he would is if he had a contract going into a fight camp, knowing that he's going to fight Kamaru Usman. He may have an inkling that he might get the fight still, but it took Gilbert Burns getting coronavirus for that to happen. So there's no way he was training the way he needed to train. He got on the plane weighing 192 pounds. He's got to cut 22 pounds in a week. Now, I did watch an interview where Kamaru Usman said that when the fight got canceled with Gilbert Burns, he immediately went out and ate a bunch of food. I don't believe that. He said he ate twice in one day. I'm not buying that. Because you know that he knew that UFC had been touting this Fight Island thing. They have been promoting the hell out of UFC 251, and that that he knew. There's no way he didn't know that UFC was going to turn every stone over to find an opponent for him. It was either going to be Jorge or it was going to be Colby. So you knew that there was going to be another opponent for him. So I think he's full of garbage. I don't believe for 1 second that he went out and just started stuffing his face with food. Again, we're playing mind games here. But I have to say one thing. As much as it's an easy pick to take Usman, and I am taking Kamaru Usman, Jorge brings violence to that sport like nobody I've ever seen before, especially in his weight division, especially in either 155 lightweight or welterweight 170. We've never seen anybody bring the level of violence that he brings. And that comes from a mindset. They always say 90% of fighting is mental. If your knees start buckling when you find out you got to fight, you've lost already. I don't care how fit you are. I don't care how good of a boxer you are. You're going to lose that fight if your knees are buckling at the announcement of a fight, right? But it's not just the fact that he's so strong mentally. It also has a lot to do with this resurrection that Jorge went through. And for you that don't know, you might be interested in this story. So apparently, Jorge went and did this reality show a couple years ago. Was it in Brazil, maybe? Central America, maybe? It was a reality show basically where you go out, they drop you off in the woods, in the mountains, whatever, and you have to survive, right? And he ended up winning. I'm pretty sure he ended up winning that. But he said that when he was there, because he had been a journeyman his whole career, he's a 50-50 fighter basically. But when he came back out of that, he was a completely different person. Completely different person. He comes out and he just starts starching people, murking them. And in a very, very violent manner. Right? Did you see that? I mean, this is just pure violence, man. What he did to Curly Q. And as much as I love Nate Diaz, and I love Nate Diaz, man. Nate Diaz reminds me of people from where I grew up, all right? As much as I love Nate Diaz, there's no way he was winning that BMF title. Did you see the way Jorge just took it to Nate? Jorge had one little scrape on his face when it was over with. Have you ever seen the rest of the people that Nate fights? As Rogan would say, they look like they fell off a train. He uses that metaphor for Tony Ferguson. But nevertheless, when you see Nate fight Conor, Conor, he doesn't look well after those fights. And Jorge just destroyed Nate Diaz in that fight. There's just no other way to say it. And I'm a big Nate Diaz fan. The one thing that drives me crazy about Nate and Nick, though, is their sportsmanship. For a sport that they claim that they respect so much, I don't like the fact that they can never seem to tip their cap to somebody that beats them. I mean, you go back in the old WEC days, they literally walked out of the octagon before they announced the winner. They did that many times. Whenever Nate or Nick lost, very seldom did they stick around for the other person to get their hand raised. That kind of stuff bothers me for somebody that claims to respect the sport so much. However, I just love Nate anyway. But at the same time, he claims that he was wearing Jorge down in that fight before the doctor stoppage. I don't buy that. There were no indications whatsoever. You know, it's just like the whole, Nate beat Conor in the second fight. No, he didn't. Nate didn't beat Conor in that second fight. I watched that fight I don't know how many times, wanting to find a path of victory for Nate in that fight. And Conor won 3 rounds. It's just that simple. He did. I believe it was 1, 3, and 4. I have to look at it. It's been a long time, but no, Conor did not win that fight. Or I mean, Nate did not win that fight versus Conor. So, anyway, so as much as I want to tick the box for Jorge Masvidal, just no path to victory. The one thing that makes me excited about this fight. So yeah, why am I excited about the fight then? The reason I'm excited is because there are some unknowns, and whether Kamaru Usman beats him or not, he's not getting it for free. My dad always taught me, you might get your ass whooped, but don't give it to him for free, right? And I always followed that logic. That is the same logic that Jorge Masvidal has. You ain't getting it for free. And Kamaru Usman will be no exception to that rule. So stoked. We've got 3 days. It's Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know if this will be posted on Wednesday. I got a lot of stuff to do, but hopefully that'll be up there Thursday or Wednesday to give you guys something to figure out on your betting plans. Obviously, you've been watching the channel here, those of the that are here right now, and you know that I'm pretty good with picking these fights. But this card here, it's an MFer, man. It is an MFer. But if you want to pick a 2-way parlay, go with Amanda Hebas and I tried to pronounce it right. Prochazka. There's a Z in there, but I don't think it's pronounced. Anyway, so you can do a parlay there. You're not going to win a whole lot, especially with Paige Van Zandt being such an enormous underdog. But I like doing parlays or round robins because that's the only way you can really make any money unless you're putting big money down. You want to put a couple $1,000 down on Kamaru Usman, you'll win a couple $100. So. But anyway, okay. I'll wrap this up here, guys, and I will see you next week. And hopefully we have some surprises to talk about. And yeah, take care, guys. Peace.